So today's panel is called Design Without Borders. And we're going to talk about geographically expanding a design business and kind of different ways that these designers approached that opportunity and that challenge and how you can think about it. So with that, I want to introduce Andrea Martoccia Fava from Motivo Home and John McClain from John McClain Design. And I will ask you guys to just talk briefly about yourselves and before we kind of dive into this topic, I would love for you to share with our audience a little more about your businesses, kind of where you are, where you started and where you are today. So Andrea, why don't you start us off?
Okay, so yes, my name is Andrea. I'm originally from Orlando, Florida. That is where our beautiful business started. And 3 years ago, we diversified and took on the South Florida market. And we are a residential interior design firm. You through an experience from very, very beginning concepts all the way to a refined finished process.
Super. John?
And we're not like in business together.
No,
These
I
are
meant
two different
we
companies.
both started in Orlando. I'm sorry, but we are friends.
But I would be. I don't care.
These two went to design school together, so
Yeah.
they talk like siblings. Okay.
Yeah, I know, we kind of do, don't we? Yeah, that's interesting. Hi, I'm John McClain. I have John McClain Design. My offices are in Orlando here and then in Los Angeles. And we do residential primarily, but as you've mentioned, we've grown our territories into different areas, and that's what's so exciting about what we have done. So we have just been having a really good time with design lately. Lots of good projects and lots of fun things happening.
Exciting. And I think one of the fun themes that we've had here is kind of making lemonade out of lemons. And I think that's definitely something you guys have done, expanding your footprint. So, Andrea, we can start with you. Why expand? Why, a lot of folks just try to growing the business in the location that they're, currently based in. It's a little scary to expand your geographical footprint. So, how should folks think about this? Why would they want to expand?
So I think it comes from a very personal place for me. We loved our Orlando market. We were seeing a lot of success, a lot of referrals, a lot of growth, organic growth, and it felt really strong and very comfortable. And I think success doesn't come to those who live ordinary lives in a way that you have to take the risk and the chance. But on a personal note, all my family started to migrate to South Florida, and jobs and opportunities were coming my way based on that family member in the business. My mom's a builder, and we were just seeing opportunity and different opportunity. And I kind of asked myself, if I didn't try, I'd never know. And my husband, who's my business partner, Richard, he was gung-ho. He was like, let's just do it. If it doesn't work, we'll move back to Orlando. So we left our team in Orlando and gave them the tools that they needed, which I'm sure we'll dive into. And we took the risk to diversify in a new market just to see where it could take us. So I think you just have to take the risk, and you have to have a good reason for your risk.
Awesome. And John, I know you had a slightly different experience. How did you decide where to expand, and how do you get that information?
Kind of like Andrea, it happened organically. Like I was beginning to get project interest in Los Angeles, and so I dipped my toe in the water and decided that I would try it out. And so I hung my shingle in LA before I was even there, right? No one, and the clients never knew. That's how good I did it. I just looked at an opportunity, like Andre was saying, to expand, to grow. I love taking risks. I love taking calculated risks. I think those are the best. And we just decided to eventually stop from being where I traveled to Los Angeles to physically opening up an office there. And what that taught me was, what we're going to talk about, was so many great things that we are capable of doing as a company that I don't have to physically be everywhere that every project is. And it was just an enlightening experience.
And I know we talked a little bit, you mentioned like you were getting project interest. How did that come about? Where did people how were they finding you?
Well, first of all, I have a very big mouth. They probably could hear me all the way from Florida saying, I want to move to LA. No, but obviously we advertise on Houzz as well. And I decided to sort of put our feelers out and advertise in areas where we weren't actively working. I have a friend base there as well, so that definitely helped. I'm not going to say I moved out there completely cold without knowing anybody, or I even started doing projects there, but the beauty of it was I had this system in place and was ready to go because we were operating our office so well that I was ready to open up the office there eventually.
Makes sense. Makes sense. So let's talk a little about some of the challenges that you guys have faced and how you've successfully addressed them, because I think you've worked through quite a lot of them. So, I think workflow is one. When people have remote teams, a lot of folks have challenges just managing the team that's in front of them every day. How do you guys, deal with managing remote projects, remote workflow, remote people?
I think the key to managing projects in different areas is communication. It's constant communication with your trades, with your team, with the client. They need to know, in my opinion, that just because you are not physically there, you are still very much present. So I think overcoming the challenge of lack of communication or having meetings that are not on site in person, you need to navigate those challenges in a really productive way.
John, I know you do a lot of team meetings to try to keep everybody together. Can you talk a little bit about how you approach that and the communication inside your team?
Yeah, I've always been proactive with team meetings, and here's my lovely team now, so they can vouch for that. So we, like for instance, when COVID hit and all the craziness started, and everyone was like, "Oh my gosh, we have to do virtual." I was like, "All right, it's another meeting for us, right?" So we already had it on the calendar. We already knew how to communicate with each other, but kind of piggybacking on what Andre was saying, I had systems in place. I had processes. We just had we call it a design summit yesterday, where we sat down and looked at what went well, what didn't go well, changed things, sort of add to our processes. And so I had those processes in place, and that really opened up the world to us because I knew if I could do it here, I could bring those same processes to a different area.
Makes sense. So in terms of, building a presence, you talked about advertising on house. What are some of the other things you did to put yourself out there, whether networking or referrals? What did you do to build a presence?
I definitely think networking is number one when you're in a new area. Getting out there, meeting new people, meeting other friends in the design community. I think it's a really great way to learn your environment, understand what's happening in the industry locally, and really lean into new friendships, honestly, in an area where that's going to be your referral base. For us, the success we saw in Orlando was truly word of mouth. So I felt that the best thing I could do, besides utilizing, networking events, was making friends in the area that we wanted to do design projects in.
Yeah, that, and I think also attending events like this and local events in the area. I infiltrated every single thing that was happening in the area that we were moving to and relocating to, and that really helped us to establish ourselves with certain vendors and certain companies. And so many times, even before I moved, I was attending events, special events that I needed to attend. So by the time we moved, everyone thought that I was already in that market. They didn't even know the difference, that I wasn't there, because I was already feeling like a local in that area, and I got in there. Whether they wanted it or not.
You were there.
You guys, both have very specific brands and personalities, and you're careful about how you represent your company. When you have people that you're not with all the time and you've got to train them, what do you do to make sure that you feel like your brand is being well represented, no matter who's doing it and what office they're in and what client they're with?
That's a tricky one. I think I would say that for me, when you're established in a place and your team is strong in where you start, there's already that synergy happening. So that's why I felt like John, went and expanded in California, and we were expanding in South Florida. That's where they needed us, for us to be the brand presence. You couldn't send someone else to the new territory and hope that the public would get your vision. You have to be the one representing your brand.
Yeah, and I won't say that I wasn't scared. They were probably a little scared, but I was really just trying to be there. For instance, when I first opened up the new area and was there physically, I came back more often, right? I would come back to the Orlando office from Los Angeles. Now it's pretty rare because, you hire good people, they do what they're supposed to do, and you trust them to do it. That's the beauty of really taking the time to find the right employee, train them the right way, and really make sure that we had a whole meeting yesterday also about being on brand and making sure that what we do represents the company as a whole. And if you instill that in the right person, then it's going to go far.
Amazing. So full disclosure, I know you guys both use HousePro software for your businesses. Maybe talk a little bit about kind of that workflow process and how do you keep the team together? You know, what role does software play and kind of tracking everything no matter where you are or where the project is?
I think that's my favorite thing about House Pro is that anybody can log in on our team at any time of the day and we are all on the same page. If a client has disapproved something, we're all going to see it. It's not going to be like, I don't know what happened. It says disapproved, you know, like, and we know how to then take the steps we need to take in order to, you know, reselect or make new options. And so it takes out a little bit of the guesswork, I think, when you're working remotely or from two different locations.
So it sounds like it supports the communication, which is so important among the team.
Absolutely, yes.
Yeah, I totally agree. And not only internally does it work really well, but with clients too. It just helps. If a client, even if you're not opening up a new office, if a client is out of state or out of the area and this is their vacation home, you can still communicate with them. So for us, it's just been a very seamless transition because of House Pro and the way that we utilize that. And the way that we all know, again, there's constant updates on what happened, so we can all go in there and see what's happening now in real time.
I actually want to add something. I think that what gave me personally a leg up going into the unknown of COVID and how to, you know, manage business was the fact that we were already using House Pro. So it was sort of like, well, we already been doing this virtual communication thing. We've got this. And so it was such a great tool for us because of the ease of communication between client and team. And so it gave us a leg up, I think.
I need more training on it. I'll just tell you that right now. Like, I'm not an expert.
That's what we're doing
now.
now.
Yeah, so
next.
after this
That's
is over, we're going to
next.
watch this monitor.
100%.
Because I say that to say there's so many things in there. It's so robust that it's hard to understand all that it is capable of. And so I really want to dive in further. If that took me this far, you know, by knowing more, it's going to take us further.
And I would tell people, like, it's super common to use a couple features, right, and get comfortable and master them and then add things for your business. It's kind of a lot to think about, you know, adding a whole bunch of systems and new processes, but it's something you can add on over time and start with the things that are like mission critical on the communication front, right, proposal front that you guys use. Well, I think, you know, kind of on that education front, one of the things that we, you know, when we talked, we thought it was important to talk about is, you know, what expectations should people have about expanding? Like, at what point does it make sense in a business to do that? Where should you be in your growth trajectory before you expand? You know, does it make sense for a new business, a very mature business? What are your thoughts there?
I definitely think it has to be at least 5 years into your business to feel like you have some confidence moving over. If you're going to take on two territories, if you're going to move and start a business somewhere else and let go what you were doing before, I think you're starting over. But when you're leaving something, I think you need an established amount of time. One thing that gave me confidence to do it was John's lead. You know, being friends for so many years and seeing the risk he took and his confidence. And I know there were struggles, but it was and that's a part of what I say about like having friends in the design community to talk to and lean into. But it gave me a little confidence. Like, okay, John can do it. I can do it.
Nice support system. Well, hopefully we're recording this and lots of folks across the country will get to see it, and hopefully it will inspire them to
call us up,
to
ask
have
us questions.
a little confidence. I know we talked about just putting good energy out there and getting more good energy back. So it's nice that you guys are doing this. And
well, that's
and
the beauty
doing
of the
that.
design community is that it used to. I've been in it for a while, and in the beginning, what I dealt with was a lot of cutthroat, a lot of, you know, angst between designers. That's gone. Like, it's such a fun industry now where I feel like everybody does support one another, and there's plenty to go around. Like, you know, like let's live in abundance, not scarcity mindset, right?
Absolutely.
And so, John, what would you say? Like, where were you in your, you know, development life cycle?
To me, it really wasn't about the years. It was about where I was in a comfort level with what I was ready to do. So again, I knew that I had to have systems. I'm going to harp on systems and processes like crazy, but it's really the backbone of what I believe in that makes us work. and makes us tick. So I really waited until those things were in place before I was ready to move to a different area, because I knew that if I did not have that in line where I currently work now in the area that I'm physically in, how am I going to do that in an area where I'm not located in, right? So that way, if something pops up, a question, an issue, a client issue, a trade issue, we have a system and a reply, honestly, in place to answer that with. So that was how I set the guide mark for me. It was about the same time frame as you, year wise. I mean, ended up being about maybe 4 years, I think.
So I know you felt like you were in a good place to do this, but I'm sure you hit some bumps in the road. What are some examples of those bumps, of things that were unexpected? Anything we can learn from?
We hit COVID, which I think was the bump in the road. So like literally we moved down and we were like, yes, we're networking, we're getting out there, we're meeting people, we're getting project requests, and it was like, there's a pandemic. So that was scary. It ended up not being an issue because we had things in place that backed us up, like our processes and House Pro and a great team. But I think there was an excitement first. So you're like, yeah, I'm moving. Everything's great. This is so exciting. We're going to grow. We're going to expand. We're going to get tons of new jobs. And then there's almost this like plateau and then a lot of self-doubt. And you're like, oh no, this was a bad choice. And then I think it was dragged out a little bit because of COVID. So I think there's just like this roller coaster of process. And now I'm seeing the climb. I'm really seeing, okay, this was worth it. This made a lot of sense. There's always going to be bumps along the road. But if you believe it's the right choice, you got to stick it out.
Stick it out, right? You can take a lot. And so that's a good question. Like, what is the time horizon? What do you think is the right horizon where you say, wasn't the right thing, like, let's scale it back, or let's, time to hit the throttle?
As far as a new territory, a new area?
Yeah, when you go into a new territory, how do you know whether, when is it working? How long do you give it?
Right. Well, it depends on how many times you cry yourself to sleep at night. No, I'm just kidding. I don't know. I'm probably not the best one to answer that because we really hit the ground running. And, as far as bumps in the road, and this sounds strange, but our bumps in the road were really trying to handle the amount of business that we had. And I know that sounds insane, but it means that that's a whole other level of problems, right? If you can't handle that type of an issue. So I don't know. I'm not an easy giver upper. So I think, stick with it until you get what you want. And if you're not doing something the right way, continue to try a different way. And maybe if one thing isn't working, try something else. But I don't know, maybe a year-ish,
Well, your goal's got to be bigger. And for us, our goal was, okay, we started off having 90% of our jobs in Central Florida and 10% of our jobs in South Florida. And when I started to see that ratio even out a little bit, I was like, oh, this is why I did this. And so now I think we're still 60% in South Florida or in Central Florida, 40% in South Florida. And I'm working towards that 50-50. And for me, that will be the success.
I think we should also talk about whether or not you're a solo entrepreneur or whether you are a solo business owner or whether you have a team to support you, because that makes all the difference. If you're just going to try to reach out to a different area and you are the one person trying to do all of that, that physically can't happen. I'm sorry. Someone's going to be let down, a client, a vendor, something's going to go wrong. So I really suggest, if you are going to venture out, try to get more team members on board in both areas.
And so what does a bare minimum team look like in a new area? What do you need to have?
Well, I crisscross some of the roles, right? So for instance, in our Florida office, we have administration and even some project management remotely for our Los Angeles office we have in Florida. We did a lot of flying back and forth on projects. And so I had some team members who would fly out. And some of our clients thought that, my team members actually lived in LA when they actually lived in Florida. So I think that you have to have all the essentials that you would have within your office here. You need to have some sort of way to achieve that in another office and another location, whether that's using the people or someone that you have in your existing location, or whether that's meaning bringing on somebody else. There's also great virtual ways to bring people in as well, people that aren't a permanent member of your team that you can hire as a contract basis.
Makes sense. I think it's interesting that you said the bumps in the road that you hit were more kind of managing the demand, because we're in a place right now, right, where there's a ton of tailwinds. It's a busy time. there's a lot more demand than people can manage. Is this a time people should think about other areas? And what makes other areas attractive? Is it, there's types of projects maybe that I wouldn't get where I currently work, or they're more profitable for some reason, or what are some of the things that make an area attractive and something you'd want to look at?
Well, Central Florida, we were seeing a lot of like new growth, younger families. We were doing a lot of work, a lot of revenue, a lot of quick projects. I wanted those long-term, higher-end, more custom projects, and I knew that they were waiting for us in South Florida. And so I had something specific that I wanted to get after. So that was the reason for me. If that meant somewhere else in Florida or somewhere else in the U.S., maybe that's where we would have gone. But I think there was a component of family and a certain type of project that I wanted.
Yeah, I agree with that. Los Angeles brought us much bigger projects than we had in Florida in different ways. But, I also feel like, I don't know, like it's a scary thing, but if you just continue on and like prepare yourself for it, then you can make it work. That's how I feel.
Got it. Yeah, it's, because I think people have different goals, right? And they're busy right now, do you take on an employee? Is this the right time? I think people worry about a downturn a little bit, and so trying to make those decisions, I think, could be scary.
But also expanding could also mean that someone in a different area is attracted to your aesthetic, that maybe your aesthetic, because for us, we have a very distinct aesthetic that might not resonate with everyone in Central Florida, for instance. So we had limited clients here, maybe who really got what we did and grabbed onto it. But Los Angeles, I felt like everybody was like, oh, I love that. That's so us. That's so different. And it could be because I worked for a design firm there early on in my career. And so part of that is with me. But I think aesthetically, you could also reach out to different areas that you feel could be your market for aesthetic purposes for your designs.
Yeah, like if you're living in one state that is very like a farmhouse or something and you just love contemporary design, like maybe that's not your business's home. And how can you reach out and figure out how to take on new projects where your design work truly belongs?
Find a home, yeah, wherever it is.
Find a home for your home, for your client's home.
Well, you want to be where you're appreciated, so that makes a lot of sense. We talked a little bit about, what's the bare minimum team and what do you need to support it with employees. When you expand to a new area, do you need a physical office? How soon do you need a physical office? How do you think about workspace today?
I think we have a different agreement on this, right?
Yeah,
a different point of view.
That's what
Which
makes
is
us
good.
good friends.
It is.
We can agree to disagree. I felt very strongly that we needed a physical presence. We had a small office off the beaten path in Central Florida where no one would drive by or see us, and that didn't matter. But when we moved to a new territory, I thought to myself, how are people going to know I'm here? I need them to see me. So, we tried to find a place that would attract the clients that we were after and in an area that was going to get a lot of drive-by visual impact. So that's what we did.
And are you glad that you did that?
Yes, I love it. I'm so excited. Meanwhile,
she's like, good decision, pat on back.
Dum.
Okay.
Meanwhile,
And then
John says,
No, think about it though. I had an office before I had an office, right? So I had a look. I was working in this area, and you worked sort of kind of as well before I even had an office there. So it really didn't. The office physical doesn't mean that much to me, honestly, because I think that it's the service that you give to the clients that they're going to remember. It's what the design is and how you treat them. That being said, when I did move there, eventually I did open up a physical office and I had a location. COVID hit and I was like, I don't need this anymore. And I bought a new home, put the office inside of the house, and it's all working great. I can stumble with my cup of coffee down to the office every morning. It's pretty
you have
good.
to find what works best for you. And I think everybody has their own thing, and for me, I need to be in an office with fabrics and pretty things. And that is what makes me want to create. I was really overworking from my home.
Well, and let me say too, like I don't have an office in our satellite office in LA, but I do have an office here in Orlando where my team in Florida works. So that's a full service office where we have all the fabrics and the swatches and the wallpapers and the tiles and all those things there. And we share that library between each office. So when we first started doing it, we called it design in a box, right? And so we would literally package up everything for every presentation that we would do in California. send it out to me, and I would do the presentation based on our selections. But all the actual materials came from physically this area, and we sent them there because I didn't have a space to store them yet, an office space.
Got it. So interesting. It seems like it's more about how you want to work and your team wants to work than having a meeting space for the client or feeling like you need a specific way to interact with your clients. So are you meeting with clients in their homes? Maybe each of you talk a little bit about, meeting with clients and what you need there.
I mean, we have this amazing project, new home construction in Boca, and I felt like I really need to impress these clients, right? And I didn't have the office yet, and they had me come meet them at the beach club in Boca, and I was like, I'm so sorry I don't have an office. We're working on that. And they were like, that's not why we're hiring you. We're not hiring you because you have a giant office. Like, we're hiring you because we want you to be our designer. And I was like, whew, okay. So I was like very nervous about that, but it's not really what's important for the client, especially when you have tools like House Pro where you can do virtual presentations. You can send the plans back and forth. It can be, instead of like one sit down presentation meeting, it's an ongoing presentation, if you will. Like, that's what the room boards do in House Pro. It is an ongoing design presentation. So I think that helps. And it's just a personal preference for me. And a lot of clients have different opinions, just like we would, you know what I mean? So there's probably some clients that that's important to, but not all of them.
Yeah, I mean, I think some clients really are just concerned about what gets done on their project, what the timeline is. Are you going to get done what I need to get done? Some of them don't even want to see me that often, right? Like, they're like, no, just get it all done and make sure it's completed on time and on budget, and then we're good. But I think it's the world tells us that we have to have certain things to be successful, like an office and so forth. And to some people, it's perfectly fine. And I think that, I don't know, I'm kind of bucking the status quo with that and kind of just doing my own thing and it's working because it's all about the path that you create with what you do. And but again, mostly clients want their project done, and that's just about it. I can't think of any Los Angeles designer or customer who has come to my office or wanted to come to my office. They all expect the red carpet rolled out for them and for us to bring everything to them. And so that's what we did, and it worked.
So kind of on that client note, sometimes we get questions, are all clients comfortable enough with technology? Or they sort of do they like that you send them the digital proposal and then they can sign off on things online? And do you work with different generations, and do you see a difference in different generations?
Oh, yes. There are some clients that just can't figure it out. God bless them. But, we're here to help them navigate and come up with a new process, and we print things out and bring it to them. But for the most part, I mean, we get nothing but, wow, this is so easy to use. So we're very happy about that. But the one-offs that are of an older generation or something like that, we're there to help them.
That's what you say. Should I click the approve button now? That's what you say.
I'll make those choices for you.
And the answer is yes.
The answer is yes. Click that approve button.
We've
really
always
awesome.
had clients, even if our clients had a physical home here, sometimes they live in different areas. We've talked about this before, and they love it because they can do it at midnight. They can do it in the morning. They can do it after dinner. It's on their schedule. I really haven't had too much pushback from clients who felt uncomfortable with working in the system, and they don't have a choice anyway because it's what we do. So.
Right, but it's just good to know. Like, most people figure it out, right? You help a few.
And I think
older
you have to
folks
use
through
it like a sales tool too. Like, and there's this amazing platform, and you're going to have your design at your fingertips, and they're like, this is amazing.
I love that you brought that up, because we're hearing more and more that, rather than just have it be after the fact, here's how we're going to work, it's become a great sales tool where you're like, hey, one of the advantages of working with me is that I make it super easy and you can approve things from your phone. And right, it's all.
During our consultation, we mentioned that right away. You have your own, I don't really say the label for what it is. I just say you have your own project management system, and you can log in anytime you want and see everything that's going on with your project. And that's how I sell it. And then they find out later, of course, the specific that is House Pro once they're in there, but I just sell them on the benefits of it. And it does work. It really does.
Yeah, because it puts your brand, your brand is front and center. It's less about House Pro, but the ability to do things with ease, I think, is kind of the future of being relevant, and it is, right. We all are used to banking and doing everything and having everything at our fingertips on our phones and everywhere, and is like kind of these next generations that are tech natives move into the process, right? I think it's pretty expected.
Well, virtual projects too, I think, are important to remember with House Pro because we've had some virtual clients where we upload everything into the system, they approve it. We've seen them maybe once the entire process, and every single thing is inside of that. And then if it's a virtual client, we actually leave the link inside of the House Pro so that they can actually order on their own and make those choices. So it doesn't have to be a physical client where you're physically there working either. You can take on a project somewhere else virtually, use House Pro, and they still feel like they're getting the same treatment as somebody if you were in front of them.
Great. So I think for wrap up, I'm going to give you each 2 questions. The first question is, like, share just a really exciting moment that happened when you first expanded, or when you expanded. Like, what was a real joyous, happy moment for your team or for you?
Wow. Oh my gosh. I think when we finished the first project, it was pretty, because it was a massive project, the first one that we finished. And the fact that we got through an entire project with some lumps and bumps, but we figured it out. But the fact that we got through this first project, and it was this huge house with huge renovations and all the furnishings and all the things, we celebrated because it was a big deal. So I think that was something to be accomplished. So you need to reward yourself for these little accomplishments that you do throughout your business and throughout your life, and that was a big one for us.
I think it was the first call that came in on its own, not through a family member or a friend or someone from the kids' school. It was, well, maybe it was through word of mouth, but not, someone direct. It wasn't like, oh, I want to hire you. It was like, oh, maybe you should reach out to this company. And then they did their research and said, oh, they're here. We want to hire them. And for me, that felt like success.
That's amazing. And so what would you leave people with as your kind of biggest piece of advice as they're thinking through this?
This may sound super cheesy, but I would say, like, follow your heart and your dreams. Like, you don't have to be stuck in one place. You don't have to just do all your projects in your state or where you've got your locations. Design is open. We're doing projects in Pittsburgh and, Chicago and across the country, and we're able to reach out to clients and get our design out there. And that's my big dream, right? Like, to design and do all these really cool projects. So you don't cap yourself. Follow your dreams, your little Disney magic dreams, and you really just figure out a way to get it done. You just buckle down and do it. Use the tools, use the processes, use what you're doing that works where you started to get where you want to be. Love it.
Yeah, I'm a huge dreamer and planner as well. So I think, yes, don't limit yourself. Dream big, make big goals, find a way to do that. Also, too, the process of getting to that goal can be just as fun and interesting as getting to the actual goal. So if you know that you're going to expand to a different area, or you're going to open up your design to different territories, start planning it. And that gets the excitement going, and it gets it, being built up inside of you. So when it actually does happen, then it's a really big celebration. So you don't have to wait until you're physically there. You can start now to make that change. That's my takeaway.
Write it down, make a plan, start putting your dreams down on paper.
And I think reaching out to designers or friends that have taken the steps that you are nervous to take or want to take. John and I met in college and we've stayed friends. And I think it's always really great to be able to reach out and say, like, I'm thinking of doing this. What do you think? Or how did this work out for you? So create really strong industry friends, because they are your biggest map, I guess you would say, to help you navigate how you're going to get through these big decisions you're making, and also a great support system.
Yeah.
Love it.
Agree.
Well, incredible wisdom that you guys shared with everybody today. I can't thank you enough for sharing your experience, your expertise, your positivity, which I think is just wonderful to put out there. And I think a lot of folks are going to hopefully take this and embrace the opportunity, as we talked about, kind of let the fear go, work through it.
Just do it.
Just do it. Right. It's
Totally.
Absolutely a just do it.
I've heard that somewhere before.
Yeah. Can we get a big round of applause for our amazing panelists today? John and Andrea, thank you so much. You're wonderful.